Hey guys, and welcome to Gwent. So I want to check out the GwentSlam decks, and I think you guys want to join me. It's gonna be a long video, goes without saying. Maybe I even need to chop it into pieces, but let's just see. I'm kind of curious what... Well, actually I saw the tournament, but I'm kind of curious to like compare the decks of the players against each other. And the most impressive part is that some of these players actually qualified for the tournament. They went through a grueling, huge fight. Because it could go either way, like because RNG does have a place in Gwent as well. So it's very, very impressive that like Freddy Baves made it in and others qualified for this tournament. And others got invited, but they still put up a very respectable performance. So Freddy Baves won the whole thing. Well played, for sure. Anyway, let's get started with the decks. And we see that the first deck of Freddy Babes is Another Realms. I think that's how we're gonna go with this. I already opened up a bunch of Northern Realms. I kind of got started a little bit by myself. But yeah, let's just go. So, this is Freddy Babes' Northern Realm list. We see right away that this is like a tin heavy deck. So we tin away a lot of cards from the deck. These commandos come out, so we see like 5 deck thinning right away. This is like brings it up to 6. A decoy that's only efficiently works with Stennis and the Reaver Hunter, or no, the Reaver Scout. That brings it up to 7, 8, 9, 11, 12. Also, Shani most likely will resurrect the Stennis as well. So that brings it up as well. But we have Shani just to like make that viable. This particular deck relies on deck thinning early a little bit, just to not have a completely crap hand. This deck is not something you want to open pass with, but it could also have some respectable tempo early game. So that's good. Goes for the 3 heavy cavalry and 2 battering ram, usually seen. So this bronze core is pretty common sight. I see this a lot. The only like, of course, Dijkstra, Shani, and John Natalis are the strongest. I would say the strongest Northern gold cards right now. He did decide on Philippa. It's a bit risky choice because Philippa is random. She can just end up slapping units that don't matter or just like wasting damage. Like, I suppose that's the biggest part, like wasting damage. You might just like use your 4 damage to hit a 1, then your 3 damage to hit a 1, and then you just played a really, really bad card. But also she has a lot of damage. She does like 15 damage, and that 15 damage can be used to take out some key units that would gain more value later. So I suppose it's a good general option, but because of its randomness, it's a ballsy move to have it in the tournament. And I suppose we should continue with Game King's deck. Of course, he's using Radovid for this list. Radovid by himself is like very respectable, like 14 points plus double lock. He just shuts down a lot of things, and he's really good. Not against this deck though. It's not good against No Realm. There's not much to lock here. There's nothing to lock here. And of course, Shani generates armor. Doesn't have Trollolo in it, so that's one. Well, he doesn't want to rely on it, because if Trollolo gets locked, then hey, Trollolo did nothing. So this deck is very safe. Only weakness, so to speak, that can be exploited is that it kind of relies on thinning. You know, overall it's like, yeah, it does like thin a lot, and it could be weak to certain mail. Or if you just try to not get mail, then you just gotta rely on not using these mulligans and just trying to play these by themselves. But also you don't have a way to shut down Avalak. So overall I would say this deck is weak to a mail easily. Like a properly piloted mail. While Philip Eilhart can kill Avalak once, that can only happen once. So unfortunately, yeah, this deck can die to it. But it's a very solid deck, and I expected to see on the ladder many times. Of course, the GwentSlam is just like ridiculous, like 26 with Commander's Horn, like reinforcement. That's why, because we have reinforcement, I like this decoy more. Overall, it could be a bit of a risky choice. What this deck doesn't have, obviously, is Weather Counter, which is again a super ballsy move. I'm not really sure. Okay, maybe I'm just a little bit out of touch with the meta, but like from what ladder would make you believe, like these players would have brought a lot more Weather Counters. I would have brought a lot more Weather Counters personally. And I also spam a lot of Weather, because when you spam Weather, many times you get value right away. And the thing is, the way I'm saying is that the bronzes are worth, like, I'm just talking about average value, like 11, silver's 14, gold's 17. And when you play a gold Weather in an ideal scenario that you actually hit 3 units right away, then you actually get 6 value right away. And even if they use a clear sky or a silver mage to get rid of it, that's just the break even. And if they don't do that, or they just like get rid of one row, then it's like, hell yeah, I won the game. And that's exactly how it feels. Of course, the weakness of the gold Weathers is that they're kind of crap in a short round. Well, actually, they're not even crap in a short round, because even if the round lasts 3 rounds, they get 6, 12, 18. And getting 18 from a gold card is is great. It's great. That's above average. And you don't need to be way too greedy with the gold Weathers, but if it's gonna be a longer round, it's just gonna be ridiculous. So apparently, like, he just didn't think that that's gonna be a major concern. Of course, you have some armor, but you also kind of intend to remove that armor. So I don't know. I definitely played on decks like this, with Weather and Mill. Like that's kind of what I'm running, and this deck like just looks like a piece of cake to me. But it is a very strong deck against not a such decks. And Game King's action is actually a lot different. He doesn't have any Weather either, Weather Counter either. Trollo is something that can be used to like kind of help against Ragnarok, because you can tank with the armor all the time. He generates armor and he just tanks the Ragnarok. But of course, the Weather player might just kill Trollo in one way or another. Now this is interesting because he went for like a completely different option, but also still a very meta option. So we got these guys that are 6 power, Cadvan Seed supports. There are 6 by themselves, again, like 5 under the average value or the base value of the bronzes we have currently. But they get extra value for extra single guy you play, and you can get... You play a lot of guys. For example, you play this, then you play that. This is like, again, like 1 under the value of the average, but their combination is that you just get 6 value on top of the whole tank, and that's already worth it. It just generates a lot of extra value because these guys spawn extra guys. This is a good way to, again, it's all about just dropping a lot of bodies on the board, and it's better than the alpha option about Smuggler. The Smuggler is basically the same thing, but you cannot control what your opponent puts in their deck. Also, this is a crewman, so that can be extra useful with the machines. So we can even consider this like a 7. And the Smuggler, again, it relies on what the opponent plays, but this just like, hey, I'm gonna build a deck around this. And that makes the Cadvan Seed support extremely deadly. And one of the auto pass situations in the game right now is when the Hansult just gets that triple supports, because you know, like, that game is over. Like he's just gonna slam down so many guys. Obviously we have the Blue Stripes Commandos with Stennis, because Stennis' deploy effect triggers after the Blue Stripes Commando. However, he does run the risk of like drawing into the other Blue Stripes Commando, and it's not a negligible risk. But I suppose he just wants to make sure that have extra power, because he obviously intends to resurrect Blue Stripes Commando. However, that not necessarily would be the case. Sometimes you might want Trollolo. Of course, we have Nanaki here as well. Actually, this deck needs Nanaki because you just tin way too heavily. I suppose this is an extra defense against mill decks. Ideally you keep your cards, and like the mill deck gives you like either the battering rams or the heavy cavalries, because the mill deck just keeps giving you, I don't know, the blue stripes commandos. It's not gonna be still good for you that much, or maybe the even worst case scenario, the Reaver Scouts, because you don't really want to tin. So this is a very strong deck, very scary deck, and I did run up against it many times on the ladder, of course. Game King chose to not have decoy in it. Again, you only have the option to decoy like for value with Stennis and the Reaver Scout. So he chose to not include that. Again, we have Natalis, Shani, and Dijkstra, the core golds in No Realm, but this running a bit different core. Battering Ram is just an excellent card, frankly. So like, it's basically a no-brainer to have it in. And of course, Heavy Cavalry. These are the good cards in No Realm, and of course the Cadman Seed support. So this deck actually thins a lot less. So it's less consistent, but it's also less vulnerable to force card draws. And of course, this one is has Geraldard and Hailstorm, so that's kind of good. You can just as like an extra, like, hey. Because that's an extremely strong finisher that actually came up a lot of times in this tournament, and has Trollolo in it as well. Of course, Trollolo and Cadvan Seed supports are vulnerable to locks, and Freddy Beats' deck is not. So, but of course, you're not always gonna go up against the other No Realm. It will be interesting to know how these particular decks go up against each other. I don't have the statistic to really say anything about that. I know that both decks are good. I'm just kind of find it interesting that the finalists decided to go with well, fairly different all-around decks. And again, this could easily worth it. You can just play this and it generates a lot of value. You drop like 16 points, but you're just generating like a lot of points on top of that. In the long run, this is basically like something you just can't deal with. Like it's just too much. It becomes too much, especially with like get out guys, then get out more guys, get out even more guys. It just becomes a lot. Anyway, I do like both decks, and we're just gonna continue with so these were the finalists, and we have a Shaggy's deck, which I did check out previously. It is identical to Freddy Babe's deck, except for one card. He did choose to cut marching orders in favor of Death Mold, because Death Mold has an extra use, because he also has Nanaki. Death Mold also triggers these Blue Stripes commandos, so you can get some extra value with that, and also he has some actual way to maybe not get completely owned by Vetters, so this is a little bit more conservative. Like Freddy Babe's deck is just like, hey, I'm going full greed. I suppose Freddy Babes was right, because Vetter was not really prevalent, so I suppose that was a little bit better. But I do like Shaggy's caution here. And Melee Man, actually, well, they are using the exact same deck, so there's really nothing to talk about here. And Melee went for a completely different approach. He also decided to include like Blue Stripes Commandos, Biting Frosts, Dawn Banner. This is like okay, like, but he didn't even add in the Siege Rams. It's obviously a deck that hates on spell scoia'tael. Like that's the main reason you put in these Witch Hunters, and well, that's about it. Also, like, wants to gain some value with armor and Vetter over time. So I'm not convinced that this is a great deck. Like he just wanted a deck that like it's a good deck. I think it's less efficient than the others, but it's mainly a deck that just really like, hey, if I'm having a problem with scoia'tael, like this is gonna beat that. Like this is gonna beat scoia'tael. And I suppose that was his line of thinking, that he just like, he wanted to have a deck that is just like, maybe a slightly worse, somewhat worse than the other no realm decks. Like less efficient, like less good against a general field, but you know for a fact, almost for a fact, that everyone's gonna have a scoia'tael. And if you run up this deck against the scoia'tael, well, it's gonna be a win. I'm not so sure if I like it, but I get the line of thinking. So, I suppose I like it for that. Because I definitely feel like playing the Witchers, like when you play the ladder, it's like scoia'tael, like, damn you bastards. Anyway, and actually, I did open all their decks, and Tides didn't have a no realm deck. Adzikov had a no realm deck too. He decided to go to have a first lieutenant. It's kind of the same thing, but he doesn't have the infantry. Doesn't have the Temerian infantryman, which is a bit unusual to be frank, because you do want those guys like a lot. You know, like without them, like I know you want a first light in the deck, but without them, it's like it's kind of not worth running this combo. So, like, yeah, you have some deck thinning, but you like have like 3 deck thinning, and you play like overall like house throne guys. Like you play like 6s basically, because you play the first, that's a 4. Like overall, at the end of it, you play like 3 cards, and it's gonna be a 36 if none of them got disrupted, because they all get stronger all the time, and it's gonna be like 3 strength stronger than just playing 3 base 11 bronzes. For having 3 guys on your mulligan list, that is not really worth it, because like having guys on your mulligan list is like a -3. It's like you expect like 3 value from them, so it is ideal to run it with the Temerian infantryman, but I do like his option to prepare against weather, because that's what you would add in if you just played on the ladder. So for the ladder, like this could be the better one, better option. However, I would personally like if it was like, I don't know, had like one less guy of that, and I don't know, like maybe 2 less battering rams, or maybe like 1 less battering ram and 1 less heavy cavalry, something like that, and have the infantrymen in it, just for the thinning. And I do like the first light, but you know, you can tweak the deck a little bit. You can basically wanna like sneak in a first light if you're just dealing with like double gold letter all the time, and your deck is gonna be consistent. So like 2 is gonna be enough, but you might need the 2, because again, like gold letter will completely wreck you if you're unprepared and you just don't shut it down like right away. Like when gold letter is played on like 3 rows, assuming 3 rows, because if not played on 3 rows, then you actually have the option to shut it down for extra value. But the thing is, like, you can just say like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play on 1 row, but like that's not a good idea in this Hellstorm meta. That's a really bad idea, and actually that's many times combined with the Golden Weathers, because the Golden Weathers many times have movers. So I like the caution in this deck. Overall, like, we see again that it's Dijkstra, GwentSlam is Shani. I think that was the case here as well. Dijkstra, GwentSlam is Shani. Those are the best golds. He decided to go for Esco, which is fine. You can just shut down some, like, you can even kill Trollolo, that's fine. He went with Esco as well. Like, that's good. Like, these are good cards. Of course, Esco could be like that against like scoia'tael, possibly, because if the scoia'tael just buffs up both units with Gwent sign, then they'll never be unbuffed, so to speak. Unless you somehow weaken them, but I don't know, double battering ram before they get stronger. It's unlikely. So Esco could be dead, but sometimes. So that hurts, or just doesn't go for a lot of value, because you would need to find like at least a 10 with Esco, and that is kind of, or just something that would get more value over time. So You gotta find like a 10-ish at least, just to like break even with Esco. And that is not always available, I suppose. Like, he's still a really good neutral gold option, but it's not completely crazy. Swim's deck list is, yeah, it's the same. It actually has, again, more battering rams instead of more heavy cavalries here. But that is the only change compared to like Freddy Babes' list or Shaggy's list. These players prefer more heavy cavalries instead of more rams. And he has some better counter in it. Again, the same cores: Dijkstra, Shani, John Natalis, and Geralt Igni. Again, an option, but I kind of like it because he doesn't have... Like, it's better because he doesn't have Hailstorm. If he had Hailstorm as well, then like, okay, you're just going overkill. But like, I don't know. I suppose Hailstorm is a better option usually. So yeah, it's definitely an option. Also, can hit 2 units as well. So he might have expected like something like Stannis into like 13 power cavalry, then like another 13 power cavalry, and like, hey! See you guys. Never. Anyway, looks good. Again, he did cut marching orders, and everything else looks pretty much solid and basic. He decided to go for the whole tank, and again, we got death mode just for the, you know, he doesn't want to get wrecked by Vetter. And the thing is, like, I suppose if you have death mode and you dealt with like 1 gold and Vetter, and you might just like, death mode might die and you might put back death mode and somehow get him out. Like, it's an option. Or just resurrect death mode. Like, you have options to have gold Vetter removal again. That's why I kind of like having death mode in there. It's not a particularly impressive card because Altus Thunder, like, Torrential Rain, like, those are not great options. But like, when you need clear sky, he has it. And that's like super important. And you can resurrect it or put it back in the deck and possibly draw it again. Or maybe even just like reinforce him out. So I like that. I like that a lot. And I do like putting it back. I think Freddy's list is very efficient. But by going for this list, it might be too risky on the ladder. I think Shaggy's list might be the best. Like when it comes to efficiency slash options to really... like actually just win 2. I think you can maybe get away with 1 mage, but like going for like no way to clear sky, that's because you actually can replay this, but no way to deal with that's gonna be risky. But because this tournament was not dominated by Vetter, like I suppose like Freddy was actually right with his deck. And I think it's a ballsy move that he just went for like, hey, I got this, man. Okay, he did. Anyway, and Panda's list, which is like similar to Game King's list. Again, he chose not to go for double Blue Stripes Commandos here. Because Game King has double Blue Stripes, but Panda didn't feel like taking the chance because... It might seem like the odds are low, and you might play like Stannis early. Like you do play Stannis early, and I don't know. But let's just say like you kept like you had like 4 bronzes in your hand, and you don't have that, and the odds to get Blue Stripes Commando out of it is like I don't know, 1 to 8, 1 to 9, maybe even 1 to 10, but the odds, it is possible, and it could be like heartbreaking to do that. Again, it's a bit of a risk, but I suppose if you want to win, you gotta risk it. Anyway, Panda didn't take that risk, and he just went for like solid option, Kedvany, like it's the same thing that we saw in this deck. And again, free heavy cavalry. Instead, he went for a Redeeming Elite here, just to provide another target for the heavy cavalries. Again, we see that Dijkstra, Shani, and John Natalis are the cores in this deck, and rightfully so, because these cards are extremely powerful. And again, Geraldard with Hailstorm is a very, very, very respectable option. And again, Marching Order is not here. He actually has a spy. And that is one thing that we can actually really talk about, that many of these decks didn't have a spy. Shaggy didn't have a spy, Game King didn't have a spy, Freddy didn't have a spy. Looks like, yeah, like only Panda and Melee Man had a spy. And interesting that they chose to just not have spies. I suppose they just play without the spy. To be fair, in that deck, like, spies might just give you like crap cards, but also maybe that's not how you want to play it. I wish I had more experience with the deck, but I'm just kind of curious. I'm just kind of like, it's interesting to see how they approach this situation. Having spies is nice because you might just run up against like a keep monster, and like there's not much you can do. Like if they have some keep on the board, then you just try to fight for round 1. But let's just say like they just consume the Harpy Egg with the Nakimara, and next round you can't open pass for card advantage. So like that puts you in a tough spot at the very least. Anyhow, everything else seems to be just the same. So, like, we do see that, like, Moram kind of has, like, 2 styles. You either go for the Cadvany Seed Support poor flanking infantry combo, or you go for the, like, just to rush at a bunch of dudes with the scouts approach. And the 3 core golds are the same. Like, 1 core gold actually very much limits the silver options for the faction. And status is just too good to not be included. It basically, like, it's pretty limiting because of that. They only have 1 flexi slot, and the options were considered like Philip Eilhart, Ard, and Swim considered actually Igni. So that's that. Interesting to see. My personal favorite, I kind of like Shaggy's deck the most. It does have a lot of deck thinning, and it's also somewhat prepared to deal with weather. Also doubly so because he can actually decoy Death Mode, he can resurrect Death Mode, he can put back Death Mode, so he can deal with weather. In this deck he actually can get more value with decoy. I like this deck. As my personal preference, this would be my top choice for the ladder, but for the tournament, I suppose, like, this actually made the most sense, because you didn't need weather clears to deal with. And of course, Game King's deck is a different one, and this definitely not to be underestimated. Like, these Cadvany Seed supports with the Rams. Again, this deck doesn't have weather clear in it, so again, interesting choice, but the value of Art and push cannot be underestimated. So, and you might just take the risk of running the Blue Stripes Commando. I gotta admit that like both of these No Realm decks, the top 2 seem to be running the top 2 most efficient ones. Like, this Melee Man seemed to be more of a counter deck. Edzikov's is I don't know if I would like jump in the Esco train in this part of the meta. I do like a Philippa or Geraldard Hailstorm combo better. Again, Igni is like good work, but like I suppose you can get more done with the Geraldard Hailstorm, because even Geraldard, like, you just hits you for 15 points. That's only slightly below the average of gold, but if you set up a massive Hailstorm, bro, that's gonna be awesome. And Panda, doesn't seem like anything's wrong with Panda's list. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So we see that the lists are pretty similar. But yeah, Shaggy's list. Okay, definitely prepare some better content for the ladder. That's my tip for you guys. Anyway, so this was actually half an hour. Maybe I should just break it to pieces. Maybe not the Skellige, because that's gonna be short. Interesting. I definitely intend to play these decks or something very similar to them on the ladder, just to see it for myself, because I kind of avoided to play many of these decks because I just wasn't too interested in well, okay, I love Nilfgaard. That's what I played mostly, damn it. Anyway, I think that's gonna be the end of this video for now, and after that, well, we're just gonna have analysis of all the other factions as well. Anyway, thanks for being here, guys, and see you next time.